Alright guys, and welcome back. Right, in today's video I want to get the C20LET built up, bottom end complete, ready for the head. So let's start. Right, so in the previous video I honed the bores on the block and I polished the crank and I cleaned lots of bits up. So the block's now spotlessly clean. I've cleaned it all with brake cleaner, no dirt on it whatsoever, so we can start the reassembly process. So as you can see, it's absolutely spotless this. I need to fit the crank, and to do that I need to put the new main bearing shells in. So we're using brand new Marl, which is original equipment, really good brand. This will be as good as original, if not better, and they're just standard bearings and nothing fancy. So these are the centre bearings. You know that because they've got the thrust washer on them built in, so this stops the end flow of the crank. When you press the clutch, essentially it stops the crank from going in and out. And then the rest of the shells are just normal style shells. So basically, these have got a little locating tab. And they just essentially slot in like so. That's all you need to do. Nice and easy. So I'm just going to carefully, with the end of a hammer, just tap it round. Make sure it's seated properly, which it has. So the rest, like I said, are just plain type, nothing fancy. And they just go like that. Very nice. And that is that. So I'm now going to use some Lucas assembly lube, put a little bit of lubricant in each one, and then the crank can go in. Right, now she's lubed up, it's ready to slip the crank in. Look at that, rotates like a good one. Really pleased with that. Beautiful. Right, this is the centre bearing. And slide the shell on. So there we go, just need to lube it up and that is done. Just a little point, the little lock cut out bit, that needs to line up with the other one, as in be on the same side. They don't actually line up, but you can probably just see the mark on the old one, where the old one used to be. So yeah, they're both on the same side. So lube up, like so. And that's right, that's correct. Can go on. Now these bolts have a torque setting. I'm just going to loosely put them in for now, and then we'll follow the torque sequence. As you can see, that is number one, which means it goes at this end next to the crank pulley. So again, locate the little cutout, push it in, make sure it's nice and clean, which it is. Lube it up, and away we go. Good practice just to keep spinning it as you go along. Obviously not too fast because it's not bolted up properly, but just make sure it's still nice and free. Again, loosely putting the caps in. 2 more to go. So the last one, it's got the rear main oil sealing, and this has got to be like silicone essentially to the block, otherwise it will leak oil out. So you fill these grooves up with like RTV or something. I use Victor Ryan's gasket glue. It's really good stuff. OE quality, works perfectly. So we need to put a bit of glue on both sides, carefully pull it in, obviously, new shell, and away we go. So as you can see guys, I've applied the assembly lube and a good amount of sealant to both ends of the cap. Now I can carefully fit it into place and put the bolts in finger tight. So it's now time to torque the main cap down. Now remember, this is a two-stage process. Step 1 is 50 Newton meters, and step 2 is between 40 and 50. I'm going to go for 45 because it's an eighth of a turn and keep it nice and simple. So you start from the inside and work out just like you would on a cylinder head. Obviously before I move on to step 2, I'm going to rotate the crankshaft and make sure it all spins freely as it should. Once that's done, I can complete the second stage, which is 45 degrees. Once again, crank turns really free, so I'm really happy with that. Right, so now the crank's done, I can fit the oil pump. I first apply a thin amount of sealant to both sides of the gasket. Now this is overkill, I know, but I don't want any oil leaks on this engine. I then apply assembly lube to the seal just to make sure it slides on nicely. Next up is to slide the crank pulley spacer onto the end of the crankshaft. Again, I always use a bit of lube on these because they do seize on. We don't want that to happen. So now it's just a case of fitting the M6 bolts, there's 6 of them around the edge, and I just torque these by feel because I don't have a torque setting. So that's the oil pump all done. I'm going to move on to the pistons and rods. So first off, I remove the rings and I clean the pistons up using petrol, a nylon abrasive and a nylon wire brush. Top tip from me, I also use a broken piston ring just to clean the grooves out because they can get quite carbony and make the new ring stick, and we don't want that. It's slow work, but it does pay off. Right, now the pistons are all clean, I can fit the rings. So these are mild products, so the OE quality. They start on A1 and they work up to C. So you essentially put A1 first, which is the bottom ring, and C is the top ring. Nice and easy. So I take my time fitting these because I don't want to break one, and I use a little bit of lube as we go. So once the rings are on, we can move on to the big ends. Now again, I'm using mild products, so again, OE quality. Now just make sure you put these on the right way round because you can get it wrong. Whenever doing anything like this, I'd always recommend using plenty of lube. So I only have a cheap eBay special ring compressor. So you slide it over the piston and tighten it up. And my tip is just to turn the piston a little bit as you're tightening it up to make sure everything's free. Obviously lube up the bores, lube up the piston rings. Then slide the con rod through and carefully knock the piston into the block. Now just take your time with this, and again rotate the compressor slightly as you're doing it to avoid any tight spots. Now the piston's in, I can line the con rod up with the crank and fit the cap. Obviously make sure you fit the right way around, same as the mains. So I think I tighten everything for now, and then when everything's done, I'll torque it all up at the end. 1 down, 3 to go. Right, so that's all done now, so now we need to torque with the big end bearings. So these are 26 foot-pound of torque, which is 35 Newton meters, and then you do it a further 40 to 60 degrees. So I'm going to go for 45, because that's nice and easy. And there we go, all torqued up. So now the crank's all done, I can put the sump baffle plate in, oil pickup, and a sump on. And that is kind of the bottom end pretty much built up. So I'm just degreasing this bottom end again. I want it to seal really well. I'm now using a Stanley blade to cut the excess gasket off here. So this is the oil pump gasket. It's just slightly proud. We don't want that, do we? So. Right guys, so we're using a brand new 2-litre 8-valve late spec gasket and baffle. Now the LET ones are cork gaskets, one on either side with a metal plate between. This is a bonded item, it's all one piece, it's less likely to leak, and they're a better design. So we need to put this on and then put the oil pickup pipe on. Now I've got a brand new seal to go in there. This is all being cleaned. And I also want to put a little bit of sealant around here just to try and prevent it leaking even further, because these engines are known for oil leaks if you didn't already know. So again guys, I'm going to use the Victor Ryan sealant, it's really good stuff. Little smear all the way around. That should help us no end. Right, plate on. Like so. So here's the oil pickup. I'm just flicking the seal out to replace it. like so. And that simply slots on like that. So now we can stick the sump on. I just want to put a little bit of sealant on the face, just the same as the other bit, and that can be fitted. So I'm using brand new M6 for 20 bolts. I think these will do the job. So the trick to these is not to over tighten them. I'm just doing them with my fingers. I'm going to get them all in, and then I'm going to torque them properly. If you over tighten them, they leak. Trust me. Most people do. They think, oh, I'll make it nice and tight and then it won't leak. And it does the opposite effect. Right, so all the bolts are in, finger tight, and now I need to torque the sump up. So it is 15 Newton meters. That is just there. Again, I'm going to start from the center. And that is the sump done. I'm now using a Alex Darcy oil filter adapter. So this takes the sandwich plate out for the oil cooler, because this car is a road car, it's not a race car, it's not in a hot climate, so it doesn't need an oil cooler. So that simply screws into here. I'm just going to use some monkey grips, just carefully tighten it up. I'm not going to, that's it, just a little bit. Brand new oil filter, standard germ one. I'll put a little bit of lube around here, and that can screw onto here. Hand tight, and away we go. So there we go, guys. The crank is in. The com rods, the pistons, new rings, new shells, sump, baffle plate, oil pump, oil filter housing, and adapter. If you like this episode, please show your support by hitting the subscribe button. Stay tuned for more, because there's going to be loads more LET content coming soon. See you later, guys. Bye bye.